Hi, today is Friday, right? August 1st. So it's 8个月, in Chinese. As a matter of fact, I will be traveling to China tomorrow. I'm not sure which city to visit yet. I don't have any tickets on my hands at the moment, but in an hour or so, I have to decide which city and how many days in China, right? I'm thinking of visiting Changchun again and Jilin, where many Koreans live, or I'll just go to Tianjin and then on to Beijing. Not sure which city to visit because I'm just traveling solo. When you travel solo and you are married, you feel lonely. You feel deserted. You feel left alone. So the trip would be a little bit somber one. I will just do meditation and morning exercises, Tai Chi, and anti-cancer Tai Chi walk in my trip in China. In China, right? If you're interested in the anti-cancer Tai Chi walk, you can check out several of my videos on YouTube channel. Just type in anti-cancer Tai Chi walk, anti-cancer Qigong walk, or anti-cancer treatment, or just look for KT Park. Park is my family name, P-A-H-K. In Korea, many people just use P-A-R-K for their name when their family name is Park or Park. We don't have R sounds. I'm not sure why we use R in our name, so I just opted for H instead. It sounds like Arabic, right? Muslim, Islamic, but P-A-H-K, Park is much closer to the original name. I'm pure Korean. I work for Korea Telecom KT, the #1 cloud service provider, an AI company in Korea. If you need my help, when you set up your company in Korea, just come see me. We provide voice data, internet, messaging, mobile services to your company. We'll set you up nice and easy and modern, right? Today we are going to touch on, well, there's a lot to get to, but now as a part of my first reading, let's touch on the defense in depth. I've come across this word yesterday, right? Defense in depth. I didn't know what that was, but as an IT engineer and mobile service, KT service consultant, I should understand the concept, right? Mobile in depth. We KT sells Microsoft Azure products and services. So with the Microsoft Azure concept, there is the particular concept called defense in depth. So I should be well versed on this word or concept. So here we go. This one is from Fortinet, the #1 UTM or VPN company, products company in the world. What is defense in depth? Understand the elements of defense in depth and what layered security looks like. 2025 Cyber Threat Predictions, 2025 Threat Landscape Report. What is a defense in depth? Defense in depth is a strategy that leverages multiple security measures to protect an organization's assets. The thinking is that if one line of defense is compromised, additional layers exist as a backup to ensure that threats are stopped along the way. Defense in depth addresses the security vulnerabilities inherent not only with hardware and software, but also with people as negligence or human error are often the cause of a security breach. Today's cyber threats are growing rapidly in scale and sophistication. Defense in depth is a comprehensive approach that employs a combination of advanced security tools to protect an organization's endpoints, data, applications, and networks. The goal is to stop cyber threats before they happen. But a solid defense in depth strategy also thwarts an attack that is already underway, preventing additional damage from taking place. Antivirus software, firewalls, secure gateways, and virtual private networks, VPNs, serve as traditional corporate network defenses and are certainly still instrumental in defense in depth strategy. However, more sophisticated measures such as the use of machine learning, ML, large language model, to detect anomalies in the behavior of employees and endpoints are now being used to build the strongest and most complete defense possible. So from now on, I'm going to mimic, impersonate Trump. Like a Chongqing guy or a Chinese Trump in Chongqing. A changing work environment and threat landscape. Defense in depth is needed now more than ever as more employees work from home and as organizations increasingly rely on cloud-based services. Cloud-based. Isn't that a beautiful word? Cloud-based. With employees working from home, I like that. No one beats me like that. Organizations must address the security risks associated with employees using their own devices for work and their home Wi-Fi connection, right? That's a tricky word, connection, to enter the corporate network. You don't need a corporate network, right? Corporate network. I don't have anything to do with Epstein. Even with IT resources in place, vulnerabilities are inherent in devices used for both work and personal use. Vulnerabilities exploited by cybercriminals. Further, with more companies using cloud-hosted software as a service or SaaS applications, many of which are mission critical, the privacy and security of an increasing amount of data entered through websites remain difficult to manage. Defense in depth is similar to physical security. The concept of defense in depth is no different from physical security, such as that used for a building or to start work in an office environment. Building security has many layers, some of which may be considered redundant. An employee uses a key card to enter the building. 2. A security guard keeps watch in the lobby, right? Keeps watch. That's good expression, right? Keeps watch. Keeps watch in the lobby and key card. 3. Security cameras record all movements in the lobby, on each floor, and in the elevator. 4. Once arriving at her floor, an employee must use her key card to open the door to the office floor. 5. Once at her desk, the employee turns on her computer and enters her password and temporary 4-digit code two-factor authentication to log in to the company network. 안녕하세요. Once at her desk, the employee turns on the computer and enters her password and temporary 4-digit code, two-factor authentication, to log in to the company network. These are, of course, just a handful of security steps that the employee must take to begin work for the day. Some of these may seem unnecessary and some measures may seem stronger than others, but taken together, they are analogous to a defense in-depth strategy in place within organization. So here's another good expression, right? Taken together, all together, right? Taken together, they are analogous to defense in-depth strategy in place within organizations. But taken together, they are analogous to a defense in-depth strategy in place within organizations. Common cybersecurity issues. The following are some common issues organizations have to deal with when implementing a cybersecurity strategy. 1. Anti-malware software has not been updated and or is not installed on all devices. 2. Employees have not been trained and are falling victim to phishing schemes, right? Falling victim to phishing schemes. 3. Software patches are not being updated or ignored. Employees have not been trained and are falling victim to phishing schemes. 3. Software patches are not being updated or ignored. 4. Security policies are not enforced or even known by employees. 5. Missing or poorly implemented encryption. 6. Remote employees are connecting to unsecured networks such as the public internet. 7. Physical security flaws such as unsecured server rooms. 8. Business partners such as cloud service providers are not fully secure. Imagine all of these issues taking place at once. The only way for an enterprise to defend itself from vulnerabilities is with a solid, comprehensive defense in-depth strategy. If one measure fails, another measure is on standby, to ready to take actions, on standby. Falling victim. The different elements of a defense in-depth system. The multi-tiered approach to security in defense in-depth system incorporates elements from the following areas. 1. Physical controls. Examples include key cards to enter building or scanners to read fingerprints. 2. Network security controls. This is a software that authenticates an employee to enter the network and use a device or application. 3. Administrative controls. This authorizes employees, once authenticated, to access only certain applications or parts of the network. 4. Antivirus. This is the tool that stops malicious software from entering the network and spreading. 5. behavioral analysis, algorithms, and ML can detect anomalies in the behavior of employees and in the applications and devices themselves. Behavioral analysis, antivirus, administrative controls, network security controls, physical controls. How does defense in depth help? By layering and even duplicating security processes, the likelihood of a breach is minimized. Most organizations recognize that a single layer of a security or a single point product, for example a firewall, does not go far enough to protect the enterprise from the increasing sophistication of today's cyber criminals. For example, if a hacker successfully infiltrates an organization's network, defense in depth gives administrators time to launch countermeasures. Antivirus software and firewalls should be in place to block further entry, protecting the organization's applications and data from compromise. Redundancy in security may, at first glance, seem wasteful. However, a defense in depth strategy prevents threats, because when one security product fails, another security product is in place to take over. At first glance, seem wasteful, right? Redundancy in security at first seem wasteful. Redundancy in security may at first glance seem wasteful. Redundancy in security may at first glance seem wasteful. What is layered security and how does it relate to defense in depth? Though used interchangeably and incorrectly, the term layered security is not the same as defense in depth. Layered security is having multiple products in place to address one single aspect of security. The products may be very similar and aim to do the same job, but in a layered security strategy, they are both necessary. Using seemingly redundant products and strengthens the enterprise's defense against threats. For example, a gateway and a firewall both determine which data should be allowed to enter the network. There are certainly differences between the two. A gateway is hardware, while a firewall is both hardware and software. But they both aim to restrict access to certain websites and applications. Once the gateway and firewall have done their jobs, an employee has been allowed to visit a particular website. For example, another security product or service will have to take over if the employee wants to enter a password to log into that website. The next security product can be multi-factor authentication (MFA), which prevents access to a website unless multiple credentials are provided. In other words, layered security only addresses one dimension of security or one vector of attack, while defense in depth is broader, multifaceted, and more strategic in scope. One vector of attack. Right. Vector has the direction and strength, magnitude, right? One vector has the attack. One vector of attack. A layered security strategy is evaluated in three different areas: administrative, physical, and technical. Administrative strategy include the policies and procedures needed to restrict unauthorized access, such as role-based access control or RBAC, right? RBAC, like I will be back, right? Role-based access control, or employee training to protect against phishing scams or schemes. Physical controls incorporate physical securing access to the IT system, such as locking server rooms, while technical controls include the mix of products and services the organization selects to address security. One of the essential layers in a defense in-depth mechanism. Core layers to carry out a defense in-depth strategy should include 1. Strong complex passwords, 2. Antivirus software, 3. Secure gateway, 4. Firewall, 5. Patch management, 6. Backup and recovery, 7. The principle of least privilege, or giving a user the minimum access level or permissions needed to his or her job. The principle of least privilege. The principle of least privilege, or giving a user the minimum access level. As companies grow,